Some of the things that we want to avoid during breastfeeding. Oh, what do you mean? I'm not going to tell you to avoid any foods. You eat the foods that you want. If your baby has a reaction, which is very rare, by the way, then we can work through that at that point. But don't avoid your favorite foods like spicy things or broccoli or whatever. Eat the foods you want to eat. I am going to encourage you to avoid keeping a painful latch. Keeping a painful latch has a huge impact on your breast milk production, and it increases your risk for infection greatly. So let me just share a little story here with you. I have three children. My third child, my last, he was a big guy. He was 8'13" at birth, and he was breastfeeding great in the hospital. I had zero issues in the hospital. But we got home and it started to get more and more painful. And we did deal with some thrush issues, but after that got resolved, I was still dealing with a lot of pain. And I literally was curling my toes and holding onto the chair with the other hand and crying during my breastfeeding sessions with him. It was so painful. But I was like, well, the breast milk is what's best for him. So I should just suck it up. I just need to be tough. It'll get easier. This is only temporary, right? Like you psych yourself up about all these things. So I just sucked it up and I did that. But what was happening is he didn't have a good latch and he was damaging the nipple more, which increased pain. And he wasn't transferring the milk. And because he wasn't transferring the milk very well, I had to supplement with formula because he wasn't getting enough. And then I'm supplementing with formula and my body's decreasing the amount because it's staying in the breast. And if that milk is staying in the breast, your body says, oh, we need to take it down a notch. We need to make less milk because the baby doesn't need as much anymore, right? So it was just this big vicious circle that I didn't quite understand. So let me recap that because I know I kind of went all over the place. I sucked it up and I dealt with a painful latch, but that painful latch meant that he wasn't transferring the milk very well. Since he wasn't transferring the milk very well, he was still hungry and crying, so I gave him formula. But also because he wasn't transferring the milk very well and it stayed in my breasts, my body down-regulated my milk production because it thought I didn't need as much milk. And so then it's just this big vicious circle. So don't suck it up and deal with the bad latch. Please, please, please break that latch and reapply. If you have to reapply the baby 20, 50 times, do it because they will not remember that. They're going to remember that you gave them the nourishment that they needed. Okay. Another thing I'd like for you to avoid when you're breastfeeding your newborn is avoid holding the baby on the back of the head. When you have the baby coming to your breast like this, if you're supporting back here or if you're cradling like here, that's fine. But try not to hold on the back of the head. There are two reasons for this. Your baby needs to be able to extend their head well to open up and gape and get a good latch. But the other reason is they have a reflex. And if you touch the back of their head, they're actually going to push back into your hand. And so a lot of times mamas will get the baby latched and they're sitting there holding the baby, but they're like, the baby keeps popping off. I don't understand why they're popping off. Touching the back of the head. The next thing I want to tell you to avoid is to avoid bringing yourself to the baby. Now, let me just adjust this so I can show you. So here we are. I'm going to pretend I'm breastfeeding this little one. And here's the baby, and I'm bringing my body to the baby to feed. Do you see how that is? Now, if I'm holding myself like this for 20 minutes, 40 minutes, however long the baby's feeding, do you see how that could be backbreaking? Or if you go like this to latch and then you try to reposition yourself, you're likely going to break that latch. So if when you're breastfeeding, you actually bring the baby to you to latch and you have your breast laying in the most natural position for itself, you're just gently supporting it with this other hand. You're not moving your breast over for the baby. You're bringing the baby nipple to nose and you bring the baby to you when you're feeding. Once baby's been latched like that for a minute or two, don't reposition too quickly, but for a minute or two, then you could maybe even support the head down here or cradle the baby at that point. The next thing I want to encourage you to avoid when you're breastfeeding is caressing the baby in a loving, I'm giving you affection way. And this is what we see happen often is baby will be latched on and, mom is just gently stroking the cheek. And what happens is the baby breaks off of the nipple and starts to try to latch on the finger of the mom. So try to limit your caressing, affectionate caressing during your breastfeeds. You can caress or massage or whatever to help stimulate the baby to suck again if they seems to have taken a longer than natural pause. But caressing and loving up on them can likely put them to sleep or distract them from their latch, and they'll try to latch on to something else. Okay.